In today's video, I am going to teach you how to duplicate a pivot table in Excel. If you already have a pivot table set up and you need a duplicate, you do not have to rebuild it from scratch. You can copy the existing pivot table structure and paste it wherever you want. In this tutorial, I will walk you through the exact keyboard shortcuts and clicks you need, step by step. First, click any cell inside your existing pivot table. This is important because Excel will only treat the selection as part of the pivot table when your cursor is located within the pivot table area. Once you click inside it, you should see that Excel considers that pivot table active and it is ready for editing or selection. Next, press Ctrl+A to highlight the entire pivot table structure. In many cases, the first Ctrl+A highlights the pivot table contents or current region, and then a second press may select the full structure. Since your goal is to duplicate the pivot table cleanly, you want Excel to select the full pivot table, including the layout that contains the rows, columns, values, and any totals. You should notice a clear selection outline around the pivot table area, not just a single cell. After the entire pivot table is selected, press Ctrl+C to copy the selected pivot table. At this point, Excel places a copy of that pivot table structure into the clipboard. Take a moment to make sure the selection still looks correct, because copying the wrong range can lead to a partial paste. Now that the pivot table is copied, you are ready to paste it in a new location. Click cell E3, or any empty cell where you want the duplicate pivot table to appear. Choosing an empty cell matters because it gives Excel room to place the pivot table without overwriting existing data. If you are not sure where to paste, pick a location that is clearly separated from your current pivot table and other tables. Once you have selected the destination cell, press Ctrl+V to paste the duplicate pivot table. When you paste, Excel should recreate the pivot table in the new location, keeping the same structure and configuration as the original. You can then review the duplicate to confirm that the layout looks right and that the pivot table expands and collapses as expected if your original pivot table has those features. After pasting, it can be helpful to quickly scan the headers and totals. Make sure the row labels, column labels, and values are showing in the same way as the original pivot table. If your pivot table uses sorting or filtering, the duplicated version should preserve those settings. This makes duplication a great option when you want to create variations, compare views, or keep one version as a backup. Finally, if you need to adjust where the duplicate sits on the sheet, you can reposition it by repeating the process and selecting a different empty cell. But in most cases, pasting into E3 or another empty area will place it neatly. And that covers everything you need to know. In today's video, I showed you how to activate your existing pivot table, select the entire pivot table structure, copy it, and paste it into a new location using Ctrl+A, Ctrl+C, and Ctrl+V. And that is all there is to it.